Okay. Oh, I've started the recording. I'm just pasting there we go. Didn't work the first time. The terms of engagement. Oh, I did. I pasted it twice. Well, there you go. It's extra. It looked like it didn't paste. Welcome, everyone. Sunday, SASS Mass. We will get started. And the recording is started, obviously. By participating in SASS, you agree to follow the terms of engagement, which are posted here in the chat. If you could mute during the recording for clarity while others are talking, that would be wonderful. You can use the raise hand if you have a question or a weigh-in. If you want to weigh in on the conversation, just also write weigh in. And but you can also raise your hand to change the topic if you would like. The announcements this week are for members of the Foundations program. We have our town hall on the 9th this week at 6 p.m. Pacific. So we hope as many people can join us as are available. And we are just about closing out regular ticket sales for the Convergence in Oregon. And regular ticket sales will end on the 12th. And that's it. Besides that, our regular meetings are in our calendar, and those can be found on the website under the resources tab. Ta-da! The end.
Ta-da! I love that. It's so fitting though. Like, what do you say when you're done? Right? And close and scene, right? It has been so warm up here in Alaska the last like week. It's raining right now. I can tell when it's been a while since the rain. I lived in Oregon for a long time, and so rain just is a part of life there. And like I can tell when it hasn't rained in a long time because it almost feels like my like system relaxes a little bit with the rain. There's something about the sound of the rain that just is so deeply comforting. And so I've got my tea and my cozy office, and Rufio and Stella are in here with me today. Rufio has a lot to say about that, so we will probably be hearing from him later. Go ahead, Kim.
It just rained for the first time here the other night when everybody was over and we were like standing outside and we just like got drenched, and it was amazing because I know you said how like, that's the normal over here, but not the normal so much these days. I feel like we don't see as much rain anymore, at least in like the summer for sure. But I do have something else to say. I'm not completely known on any weird topic other than when we were talking about ghosts not that long ago and like ghost shows and stuff. So I am actually on Thursday when I get into Reno, me and my sister and my daughter and her partner's sister are going to go to that hotel that was on Ghost Adventures, the Gold Hill Hotel. And we're doing a ghost tour. So pretty excited about it. And I'm interested to see, I'm just interested to see it. It'd be pretty cool.
I didn't have like an incident or anything, but I had a moment yesterday going into the crawl space of my house. Like the crawl space, so the house that I live in has like there's the original house and then there's the addition, and the addition is like the size of the original house, right? And I'm not entirely sure how Agnes, my house, feels about the addition, because sometimes there's this like no, I don't know how to describe it, but there's this like I don't know, like an eye roll. I picture like this little old lady that's like, I was just fine the way I was, kind of a thing. And, when the temperatures fluctuate significantly, like there's this creaking and moving that happens, and you can hear like the activity in the house is a lot bigger. Um, and there's that like eye roll of, yeah, it's just like, I was fine how I was before, kind of a thing. Well, anyway, so I went under the house yesterday, um, the old part of the house, looking for a rug, and I definitely had this moment of kind of like creepy, eerie feeling just before I went under. So I opened up the like crawl space, and just before I went in there to like turn the lights on, I felt that like creepy, eerie feeling. And I definitely was like, man, like even 5 years ago, I would have approached that very differently than I do now. Um, and I would have been a lot more avoidant of going down there, like, oh, creepy, eerie, nope, not gonna play with that. But what I ended up doing is just opening the crawl space, and that creepy, eerie feeling, I kind of treated it as when you're just like, I don't know. It's like I get this imagery of like a child going where they're not supposed to be going, right? Of like, um, and that was more what it ended up being, of like, no, you don't come, bursting down into my private places and like, acting like you own the place. And so what I ended up doing was just like sat on the like not stairs, it's a ladder, and just kind of slowly made my way down there instead of just like charging down and taking what I wanted and then like doing that. So it was really the whole experience. I handled it completely different than I would have like even 5 years ago. So that was a really interesting interaction, that realizing how far I've come with my relationship with that part of my like energetic body, my ability to kind of pick up on those kinds of things. And instead of meeting it from a place of like fear, I genuinely wanted to understand what was going on, and that there was a response to that, right? The creepy eerie wasn't there. It like neutralized when I was like, "Oh, okay," and respected that boundary of, I'm not gonna just come charge in. Well, I can wait until you feel ready, but I need to like do this thing. And yeah, go ahead, Matthew. Did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I can add to that. Just my personal handling of those kinds of moments is generally when I sense a space giving me a vibe. It's like, hey, I announced my intent. Hey, here's what I'm here for. Are you chill with that? Do you need a minute? And then as soon as the volume turns down, I usually don't have any problems after that. It's more of like, hey, here's what I'm here for. We can be friends. I'll leave you to your space. This is all I'm like. And then generally, like, it instantly just drops. I don't ever even feel it again. In even some of the creepiest spaces. If anyone wants to add to all this, absolutely. And if we're out of things, I have a left turn.
We can go left. I'm cool with
Okay.
left.
So, speaking of woo moments, this group actually did one last week. And what's really cool is I'm pretty sure it left behind a mundane breadcrumb we can go check. And those are some of the coolest. And that is time magic. Okay. My radar went off a little over halfway last week. And I was like, okay, I'll just keep my eyes open for it. And I probably wouldn't have mentioned it, except for the fact that we start the recording at 11:05. And I was looking at my computer at 12:57, and we already had 2 hours and 6 minutes of recording. In an hour and 53 minutes of real time according to the clock and the rest of the world, right? It was only from 11:05 to not quite 1 o'clock. We already had over 2 hours of recording. The math doesn't add up. So I'm curious if that was like, I'm actually curious if that was a local thing for my computer and me doing it locally, but I'm guessing it was the entirety of the group. Like, I bet if you go back and look, you'll have more than 2 hours of recording from less than 2 hours of time.
It could be that the ticker that we see at the top of the meeting time, that I believe is how long the meeting has been open, not necessarily how long it's been recording. And we open the meeting about 15, 20 minutes before it starts. So that could be it,
That might have,
but
that
I don't
almost
know.
pushes it
I
to
don't
the
know.
other direction, you know?
Yeah.
Let me ask this, because here, I've worked with this and I'm not going to accidentally give any secrets, because messing with that stuff, like, that'll get you burnt in real life real hard if you're not careful. So Jen, my question is, I'm willing to bet it manifested in a way that your Sunday afternoon last week after this was, you sit down with there was a cup of coffee, and instead of like 45 minutes disappearing in 5, you got to sit and enjoy it. Or if you sat down and had a practical task, like, it felt natural, but like almost like it was a perfect, like when you just set to do something, none of the ADHD monkeys kicked in, and 20 minutes later, you're like, you got what you wanted done. And I'm willing to bet you just sort of had like a bunch of those really stacked behind one another on Sunday afternoon.
Honestly, I can't hardly remember what I did like 3 days ago, much less a week ago.
Okay.
But I have been noticing for the last probably good week and a half that there does seem to be more time. Time drags on and on and on. And yeah, my
Okay.
experience of time last week, week and a half was this, like, that time was slowing down. So, yeah.
Slowing down, or 2 months worth of stuff happened in 7 days?
More, like, that is my normal.
Oh,
I tend to have, like, a
I meant by
ton going
your
on,
scale. So like,
right?
instead of 2 months, was it a year?
Right. It seemed to me that, that my relationship with time has been different the last, like, week and a half. And my saying, I'm not timelined. I don't identify as a timelined person. And that's like a part of that became very real for me over the last couple of weeks, for sure. Did you want to weigh in, Karen?
Morning, y'all. Yeah, I do. I'm stuck here in my gilded prison. Time goes so slow. So slow. But then there are other times where what you had just said, Matthew, it's like where there's been weeks of chaos or hospital visits and ambulances and doctor stuff. It's like, holy shit, that was only 4 days. You know, and no, we don't have to play with time. Time just plays with us. Holding into, I'm always right where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be there, no matter how you look at time or how you reframe it. It's trusting that I'm right where I'm supposed to be. So does it matter on what moves up or what slows down with time or how fast? It's just how I roll with it and believing that, my guides are strong enough. They're not going to let anything in that shouldn't be in, regardless of what your watch and my computer link up or sync up. So those kind of things, I just try not to. Doesn't I mean time, and there's some parts of magic that are like physics to me, quantum kind of astral stuff that it's like too big for my brain. So I have to minimize it into, so that, and just keep it that this is just where I'm at. This has been, does anybody, anybody else have anything to weigh onto that? Because I can go left or right, and I never go right.
Jana has her hand up.
Right on, Jana.
So kind of along the same thing, not like I did notice one week that time, like I kept thinking it was like days later. It just, that week was not ending. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't like anything crazy, but it just wouldn't end. It just kept going. But I had the weirdest thing a couple days ago. I've got extra kids here, 20-year-olds, but staying for the week, and we were swapping laundry and doing all this stuff. Like there are like 7 people in my house that are doing laundry, right? Which I threw a load in. And I remember, because one of them, anyway, doesn't matter. I used a different detergent. And when they were asking where their laundry was, and I said, well, it should be in the, like, it should be out because someone else has already done a couple loads. And we went and looked, and I found it in the washer. And I'm like, that's weird. Because now I'm thinking like I'm off, but I know which loads, because the dryer was going, right? And so someone, anyway, but the I don't know if anyone else does this, but like, the liquid laundry detergent, has the cup thing, and it gets kind of gooey. So we'll just toss, some of the times we'll just toss it in the laundry, right? To like clean the cup and all as well. I didn't do that. I know I didn't do that because I used the other detergent, but that cup was in the laundry, and all 6 other people in the house swear they didn't touch that laundry. So I am like convinced at this point that because I had some other stuff going on, like, I don't know, weird, but I am convinced it was a timeline jump. I cannot come up with any other possible explanation for how that laundry did what it did. So I'm just going with witchy timeline jump. Unless anyone else has like better, but it's just weird. I've never experienced, maybe I've experienced it and not noticed, but I have never experienced something like that where I am like categorically, like aside from the Mandela effect stuff, that you cannot convince me otherwise, that Ed McMahon was the publisher clearinghouse guy that walked around with big checks. Like I will go to my grave on that one. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting, like, because we're talking about time, and it just seems like weird thing. Like there is a little bit of weird stuff going on, and that was mine for this week. It's like stupid laundry, but anyway, that was it.
Which one of us is next? You want to go, Jen?
You are next.
Okay. Yeah, I will say that this isn't the only witchy community I'm a part of. So I'm consistently hearing, like, I've never, like, lots and lots and lots of people going, I've never had woo stories happen this much this fast lately. Like, stuff is going on. Bigger stuff is opening up. And I'm just hearing it. Like, a good example of that, it isn't my woo story, but someone came to me going, hey, Matt, what's going on with this? I'm like, well, what do you mean? What happened? And they went, well, there's 5 of us that started a new Dungeons and Dragons group, and we all made our character sheets for session 0. And we showed up and we had to reschedule session 0 because we all had the same race, class, stat blocks, backstory. Like if we had turned it in for homework at school, we all would have gotten flunked and sent like on suspension for cheating. I'm like, okay, 4 people show, like, that's not just 2 random friends linking up and 2 people, like, it's a different class now. And it's absolutely like more and more stuff is happening all over the place. It's the volume's getting turned up.
So I'm at this moment that I can hear Dessa and Kava right outside the window walking, and I have Rufio and Stella in this room, so things could explode any moment. Ru and Stella might just decide that they need to tell me that Kava and Dessa are right outside the window. So with that in mind, I have been hearing a lot of people experiencing like what you're talking about and saying that, things are definitely getting turned up, that things are turned on, that more stuff is happening. And some of you guys have heard me talk about how I have a crabapple tree that I talk to pretty frequently. I have a great big old cottonwood in the back, in the forest back here too. And I don't necessarily think that it's things turning up and turning on. I think it's more that we are turning up and turning on, that we are more opening ourselves more to the fact that there is more to the human experience than what we have been led to believe, that has been presented to us. And as we all collectively go on this like journey toward, there he goes. As we collectively go on this journey toward connection, right? Of recognizing and seeing that we are more a part of life than we give ourselves credit for, and that is becoming real to us. And the more real that becomes, the more we're able to uh, not just see behind the veil, but experience life behind the veil. What is it like to live in a world where that veil is lifted? So that's what I'm feeling it more of this like shift within individuals to being more open to possibilities instead of being so run by fear, and so haunted by our like past. So it's my take on it. I love this conversation though. I also think that some of that is also that, because the earth is involved in what's happening as well, and is a part of that. They are, it's not that they're waking up, but they are making it more like apparent that the choices that we make affect us globally as well. And those effects are more tangible, right? Of the higher temperatures and the crazy storms and all of that. And so there's this, because we're experiencing this in our external world, we're starting to like choose that connection, right? Choose to navigate life in a more like considerate way. And again, with that openness of, wait a minute, there's more going on than what I thought was. And just like walking around with that openness is going to have an effect. Okay, go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, and we are very much on the same page. I think we got mixed up on language more. For me, it's very much what I was pointing to is the volume. Like, yes, like people have been getting more engaged and open and everything you've said. What I've noticed is some in the last couple of weeks, especially, it's reached some sort of tipping point because the frequency and the intensity have just gone through the roof of like everyone's woo stories in every community like I drop in and out of. Like it's just everyone's had that like, hey, wait a minute, what used to be in my practice once a year, once a decade kind of stuff is now like happened twice in the last week. What's going on? And it's a big jump. And it's absolutely a product of what everything you said. And that's all I was trying to identify is like I'm seeing new classes and stuff pop out all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. The other thing that I am noticing, right? Okay, this is a big net, guys. Let me see if I can do this. There are natural cycles around, like every year we deal with this, right? Because this time of year, at least in the northern hemisphere, is that it's a highly productive time of year. And so that you're seeing a lot of things like giftings coming forward, lots of activity, job changes, like lots of changes in your practice, changes in awareness, next level stuff. That's something that happens every year around this time, and people that have cultivated a practice that recognizes and harnesses this natural um, turning up that happens at this time of year. I think that more people are coming to the awareness that this is a cycle kind of thing too. And again, uh, the more of us, because I believe that people are a part of Earth, like that we're all part of this really complicated system, right? And the more of us that lean into the natural cycles and lean into and kind of like harness um this energy, the more we start to unify, and there's this that amping up that you're talking about. It reflects back the energy that we're receiving when we choose to participate in it in that way. Does that make sense, guys? Am I losing you? Right? So we're recognizing that this is an amped up, turned up time of year. And the more of us that recognize it and reflect that back, the more real it makes it, because we're engaging with it in that way. And with this turn in more collective consciousness toward nature-based or paganism or witchcraft, the more people are leaning into that, because they're starting to understand this connection a little bit more and a little bit more. But I think that has an effect on like the bigger picture, and that I wonder if that might be playing a part of it as well. And again, those of us that have cultivated a practice that like this is the time of year every year that I do these kinds of workings, and that these kinds of things are amped up, and so I do tend to do specific workings that have a relationship with these things that are kind of turned up and amped up. Go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, it's interesting also. It's like the collective experience, because bright and dark is our anniversary time, and this is when a lot of us went through a huge, whatever you like to call it. I'll use awakening, maybe, so many words, but whatever you want to call it. And even if you didn't join 2 years ago around this time, it's still part of like the collective energy, that we all like experience together, like no matter when you joined. And it also connected to this time of year. Like for me, I do find this stuff super interesting. Like I've obviously all about the woo. I'm also very interested in the science, part of it and the connection. But like for me, all of this, I do think it's fascinating, but I also try not to get caught up with it, because the most important thing is what's my relationship to it and what's like my experience like with it. So it's like to the collective, but also want to recognize, like, for me personally, like for my growth of what's going on with me. um and I mean, I think overall, like we've been saying for a long time, like there are huge shifts going on, like with things going on, um like even like with politics, like this resistance to the huge changes and huge shifts that are happening in the world, and there's like, I see some of it as resistant, but the changes are happening, like, you know and will, because but the reason part of the reason why I try not to get caught up so much, particularly with time and anything around to do with time, is because I spent so much of my younger life living in um the future or the past, and my relationship to fear and anxiety. And so it's like, if I if I get too caught up with the time, like, again, I think it's super interesting and I definitely am noticing it. I can definitely feel things, but like I just wake up every day and I'm like, okay, where are we at today? Like just really trying to stay in the present moment and kind of seeing where I align with that, and like where my energetic body, aligns with that, my brain, my physical body. So yeah, I just want to kind of throw that in there because I do find it all super interesting, but I also don't like to get kind of caught up in it because I don't want to lose sight of where I am, if that makes sense. And it's hard because that, like, staying present is something that I have to work at. So that's where I'm at with all of it. But I love the combo. I love the conversation. Ta-da.
Right. Yeah, the identifying as like I'm not a timelined person. Uh so yeah, definitely noticed the shift in my relationship with time of like, holy shit, I can't believe it's only like noon. It felt like I lived an entire day today. Um like taking note of that and recognizing it, but I don't get caught up because time is an illusion anyway. So I don't really, it's what is it? Timey-wimey. It's like all it goes like this anyway. So right, doesn't really matter so much. And go ahead, Matthew.
I am not afraid of grabbing the wire at times. And I will say that I have done enough work for things to show up in different ways, and I have gotten the mundane to show up. And I just, there's too much there in the practice for me to tell you that story because it just teaches a door to that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's having a healthy acknowledgement of when it's happening, I think is totally safe. It helps you just like sort of be like, okay, like I could really use an extra 20 minutes. Okay, like just it's a word of caution. Don't lean into it. Like if you start making it an active practice, like, hey, you can get through the bumps, but I'm letting you know that that's one that can really have some crazy mundane bumps you weren't expecting. But yeah, but being conscious of it, feeling it move back and forth, like, I think I find that even if it's a practice that I don't engage in, just getting better with my radar in more areas strengthens my strongest suits even. Ta-da!
Do you mind if I ask questions? Um,
You can ask questions.
okay. So, you had mentioned, are you talking about like time magic? Is that what or time travel magic? That kind of, what is it that you're
No, not time travel.
referring to that is?
More like local bending when you need it. Localized bending. So it's not like picking up whole days or time loop or anything like that. This is very much in the same way you would pick up a sharp knife and a good cutting board to chop an onion faster or a food processor. You start using time as the knife or the food processor to power magic. I'm just trying to, like, I really got to stay away from accidentally opening doors on this one. Like, hey, after what you said last week, this just isn't the community. Like in an open, I don't know who's here. I don't want anyone to get doors open and have no one to go to, because that's big stuff.
I'm looking at who's actually in the meeting right now. I am pretty confident that everyone in this meeting is perfectly capable of navigating that
Okay.
if you're wanting to share that information.
I'm happy
It's a
to.
fascinating topic of discussion on your interpretation of what you're calling time magic or how you do that.
Sure. Um,
Like, do what you
I'll
want.
start.
I'm not like, I don't want to like press or anything like that, but I can tell you that everyone here is well supported and has someone they can go to should anything like
Okay, well, that's different. It's just
yeah.
I in a public space when I don't know, it's like a hey, I
Oh,
need the okay
totally.
first.
Totally.
So here's a little example of that just teaches you how to practice and become aware of it a little bit. I'm a music person, right? I'm a connection with people thing. When I started doing it enough on accident to notice, I would be listening to music with some like through a remote thing, like a synced listening service. And they go, Matt, how excited are you? You just sped the song up, right? Like they're hearing like not a subtle shift, not a whatever, just like the tempo just changed. Like, and I thought at first I thought it was just electro, like tech wizard stuff. Like I'm somehow like turning the play speed up, but fueling excitement, wanting to get to the next song, really getting in that moment. That was like the accidental door cracks that I got, and then stumbled into, okay, now that I've figured out how I did it through those flavors on accident, I started my process of like, how can I lean on my other strengths to try and tease it out and cross check with mundane? Like, can I get shifts to happen? And yeah, so like engaging with someone that you have some really good energy with, like the little things like sitting down with a friend and going, hey, I really hope like we really get a lot of time for this coffee and this talk. I've been looking forward to it. Like those little nudges, like no one's gonna get burnt. But just make sure that like if you're setting in your intent in the grimoire you're writing for what you're about to do, that you're intentionally using time as an exchange mechanism, as a source of energy. Watch the hell out, because either nothing's going to happen and you're still going to get burnt, or it's going to be amazing fireworks and you might still get burnt. But some really cool experiences have come out of that. Just you have to find the right places and time, and most of the time it's the giving to someone else flavors that tease it out the best. So whether that's sharing love and excitement, whether that's being productive on behalf of someone, like being productive to help someone, and sometimes the things we really need. But please don't, like, if you catch yourself on the way to work being 5 minutes late and go, man, I could really bend time for like, please don't use it for that. Like, because it will start working, and then it's just not a good place to dabble in that, is my word of caution from experience. Haven't been in car accidents, but I've certainly paid for it other ways. You know, I soak up 5 minutes on the way to work, and then all of a sudden I have an important meeting on the way home, and all of a sudden there's like a once in 3 month accident on the only way I can get to my meeting, and I have to like completely cancel it while someone's out of town. I paid for it. Like, I knew what I was doing and I was giggling about it on the way to work. I paid for it. You can call it a coincidence, but you know, a 3-hour crash on the, like, I don't know who knows Florida, but if you're on the, like, if you have to get through the turnpike, like between Orlando and Miami, if there's a couple crashes in a couple places, like, it's just put it in park, forget it, because it's 40 miles to the next exit. So, ta-da.
I love having these kinds of conversations, because getting a glimpse into other people's practices and kind of where they are, like, with things and what their perspective is on things. I personally don't. The only sort of time magic that I work with is like portal type magic, where I am visiting myself at a younger age, or going back to a space, and interacting in that space in a different way. But as far as actually manipulating time, I tend to kind of stay away from that, be, because it's the same, for the same reason I don't fuck with weather magic. That's so complicated. There are so many systems involved, and how things play out, the small interactions, the small things that, or experiences that are seemingly insignificant. How can I decide with my current information what is best, right? And so I tend to invest more of my energy and practice into cultivating a relationship with the present moment, and a relationship with how my life unfolds, rather than trying to control how it unfolds, right? And so in that sense, the time magic in the way that you described it isn't something that I would I wouldn't implement or interact, just because of the relationship that I've like cultivated with my life and the way that things unfold. I am really curious to hear what everyone else has to say. All right, Petra, tag,
Hi.
you're it.
Am I unmuted? Okay, there we go. This is so funny. On my screen, I'm like showing up as like a little bar, so I'm like, I can only see my mouth. I'm sure you all can see me, but this looks hilarious. I'm like, hello, there's my chin. Anyway, I have to leave in like 11 minutes, so I'm gonna keep this super brief. I have like a workshop at noon online. But I just wanted to give my perspective, which is like, for me as someone who is like attuned to Reiki, so received like that, and like I technically like close practice. Like, you can use the symbols if you want to without being attuned, but you'll be very tired because you won't be attuned to Reiki. You'll be using your own life force energy. So if anyone's like, oh, just write these on the whatever, you can use these as sigils, don't do that. It's not a good idea. take the time to find someone to attune you that you trust and you feel comfortable with if you want to work with energy like that. But one of those symbols, and I won't say which one because of the close practice piece, but does involve like time. And when we were being taught, our instructor was talking about how she had used it to like slow down the train, or where you can chant these symbols like 3 times or draw them, and then it's not like you fully start the whole thing. You get this like brief experience of utilizing the symbol if you're attuned to it. And I have used it at points in times like that. And I thought it was just an interesting juxtaposition to what Matthew was saying, was that in my experience of being someone who is attuned to that type of energy and was utilizing something that does manipulate time, it's technically supposed to be for like healing through space and time. So it allows for like online sessions to happen or things like that. But it's more of an experience of being like so acutely present. So it's not, I don't actually think in that way that it manipulates time. And sometimes I wonder if these experiences, like, different traditions have different ways of interacting with these phenomenon. And I think for me, having experienced that way and been like, this very much feels like almost like time gets slower because I'm like acutely so aware of every single second. Not that I'm manipulating the outside, it's more that like that is tuning me so immensely into what you were talking about, the present moment. So I thought that was an interesting piece to add as a kind of, alternative. I can't really if anyone has questions briefly, you can ask. But I'm kind of saying as much as I feel comfortable saying, and I'm sure because people love to like put stuff on the internet. If you Googled about it, you could go learn more. I would just, the word of caution is like, if you do research around those things, be very mindful of like, don't like, if you're not planning on getting attuned, don't take in the symbols. Just, you can read about the information without like, don't imagine the symbol later. Don't like draw it on something later. Don't bring that into your practice, just for the caveat of like, you will be utilizing your life force energy until you are attuned to Reiki. And that shit is not a good idea. Like, because it's powerful stuff. It's potent stuff. It's beautiful. But I just, as someone who's been attuned and like sat and been the conduit for that kind of energy, I can't even imagine not being attuned and like calling that stuff into my life. I'd be like, holy shit. Because it's like, it's good stuff. It's not like scary or anything. I don't want to scare anyone. It's just like potent. And so it's like, we're all, we all are varying degrees of neurodivergent and spoons are limited. And I'm like, this would use a lot of spoons. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, and I think it's interesting to have conversations about this. I also have a friend who is an astrologer, has been for like 25 years, learned different languages to be an astrologer, that kind of thing, and has mentioned to me about like time sorcery and things like that, and been like, that stuff is nothing to mess around with. And so I just wanted to validate what I wonder if that's akin to what Matthew was talking about. I'm someone who's like relentlessly curious, and so I do a really good job of having internal boundaries with myself of things where I'm like, I don't need to know about that, like, because my brain will just be like and start like diving into stuff. If someone I trust who is like, not that I don't trust you, Matthew, no offense, but I heard about this first from my friend, and she was like, it's not really super something to mess around with without knowing about it. And I was like, yeah, I'm good on that front. Like, I have enough stuff on my plate. Like, I don't need to get greedy about stuff. Like, if that decides to like come across my path in a way that I need to interact with it, that'll become apparent. And otherwise, my relentless curiosity can go elsewhere. So I will wrap it up with that and just say, I appreciate seeing all of you, and I really appreciate learning in this space together.
Thank you, Petra.
Sorry, I did have one
Yeah.
little that was just like a piece of good news. Was that we had an appointment with I was like totally almost forgot, just trying to like keep my eye on the clock so much. Update about my dog. Just really briefly, we saw a new vet that we're going to be with consistently, thank goodness, because we've been like playing like musical chairs with our veterinarians since the one that was with us for the past couple months like left at the end of April. And I guess like we cut the tumor out, even though it had like invaded the lymph node. All signs are like only there in this specific type of tumor, you only get like a 25 to 35% recurrence. So that's like pretty good odds. It's like 1/4 to 1/3 of them come back. And it'll be really clear, like it'll come back in the same area. So she was really good at explaining stuff and saying like basically like most dogs that have this tumor and get it cut out, like they don't die from this, they die from something else. And so I just wanted to share the good news of that. It was like there's been lots of emotions to process, and I haven't done them all already, which is why I'm staying super surface with this, because I'm like, I don't have time to like poof. But I just wanted to share that. I will. I feel like the kind of shutdown freeze I was having around like making GoFundMe and things like is kind of lifting, because it's like I felt like this impending sense of doom, and that obviously, it's funny, has lifted halfway, if that makes any sense, where it's just like, oh, there's something in my system that's clinging to this and I have to do some processing around that. So I just wanted to share that, and I will be eventually sharing a GoFundMe, because I just when everything felt like dire straits and I was going to lose my dog, I was like really hard for me to process being extra vulnerable and asking for help or receiving more help than I already was. And so I just wanted to share the good news, because that is important. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I think I'm next. So I just wanted to kind of share my perspective. So in the 90s, what was available to me was teachings about Wicca, Reiki, and divination, different divination practices, and tarot. And so I was really interested in the divination. I started my divination practice. I also got Reiki 2 certified. And I'd never kind of identified as a witch because Wicca didn't seem my thing. So, I just kind of wanted to say about the kind of backing up, like, I don't practice things where there's that if you do this, something like bad might happen. I don't believe in that. I don't do that. And of course, some of that comes from deconstructing from the church. My mom was divorced, and she felt really ostracized from the church. So she didn't like really push the church on me, but like my family definitely was Catholic, and I felt some pressures in other ways. But so my deconditioning definitely, like, I guess because I didn't really have that pressure from my mom, I had kind of like, I felt a little more free to explore other things. But I just don't subscribe to anything like that. Like, if something, with that said, I'm not a traditional witch, like 0% really. Like, of course, I'm very interested in the history. That's what interests me. I do like the history and reading up on that. I probably don't subscribe. I probably never got into a tradition and learning, you know, that type of like, this is how you have to do it this way. You have to do it this exact way. And, there's a lot of beliefs of like, even that karma or the rule of 3 or what have you, where, if you do this, then you better be prepared because, this is going to happen to you. I don't believe in that, and therefore it just doesn't exist, in my reality. But I totally respect like anyone that does believe in that. And if that's your belief system, that's your tradition, it's just not mine. And I just, where we're in a group of new practitioners and people just learning, people deconstructing and people figuring it out, I just like to offer, like there is no one way. Like if you feel called, if you align to what someone is saying and you want to dip your toe in and learn more about it, like definitely do that. But just sometimes when we're new and we haven't done our shadow work and deconstruction, it's easy to get caught up in it. So just kind of like paying attention to those types of things, like, no matter what anyone is telling you, do you feel called, to kind of learn that? Reiki, I don't practice it because of that thing. I feel like it's like, well, again, that specific tradition. So I don't use the symbols. I don't use the Reiki symbols or anything like that, because I believe I have access to an unlimited amount of energy. And through my grounding, practice, of course, I might feel tired, but I know how to rest and recuperate and then like get back to it. So there's just lots of different beliefs around this and lots of different perspectives. And like, I totally respect, like with the time jumping, like, in the scenarios you described of where you got 5 minutes and then kind of paid for it. And that is like your belief, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that anything like bad will come to me because I did something. Like that something externally is going to like punish me. And I'm not saying that's what you were saying, but I just like to be really cautionary when something is like that. And that's really all. I guess I don't know. I don't when when the conversation of like, what do you practice or what you're which, like I'm just extremely intuitive, and I feel like I'll keep it that way, like in terms of what I practice and how I practice. It also takes a lot of the pressure off from like having to learn shit. Like learning a tradition. But again, I think that it's super fascinating and I love it all and I love the history, and it's important to me in being a witch to like learn about other witches, and I honor that. But for me, is to organize, and everybody knows I don't like being told what to do. So there you go. There you have it. Matthew, I believe you are next. Yes, Matthew's next.
All right. So I will confirm a couple things. So like the traffic thing, that's a particular instance. It was a story I was trying to use without accidentally giving away grimoire about it. I'm huge on a huge part of my practice is if I can't see measurable, tangible results, I can use that, like the science that most atheists of non-spiritual scientists can't deny. Those are the things I look for in flavors, but I used much more of a flavor conversation. And in that particular instance, it was like I had gotten a couple hints, knew I had messed up, and went, you know what, I'm gonna pay. My intuition was like, yeah, I don't effing care. I'm gonna pay for it. I'm gonna get these 5 minutes. Like it was one of those like, yeah, I like spit in the universe's face and got paid back. Like that's just part of it's happened too many times for me. And it wasn't a big way, like it didn't cost me a client or anything. But yeah, so I'm big on the and I completely want to confirm what everyone else said. Like make sure you have a lens that is real, whether it's Reiki, whether it's whatever else. If you're going to dive into that stuff, have a really clear lens. It's not the lens I came from. There's not even language I can use to describe it other than, let's say I was in a relationship for a long time with like a 10th generation European witch. A lot of that stuff isn't written down anywhere. So I was able to get someone who give me that lens of clarity that other people get through, whether it's Reiki or other practices. Yeah, so it's at this point, like that was much more the developing gift, figuring out what to do with it, coming in flavor with it. At this point, I totally agree. Like I'm very, very much in the present. I'm so not anxious about time or whatever else. Like, very easy for me. And it's just at this point, it's I keep my radar on for flow so that I'm in tune with it, so that when I do dig into it and tap into it for ceremonial, when I'm really in that specific lens, I'm not like having to knock the dust off that particular tool. And it's a really special tool for really special cases. Ta-da.
Morgana is next.
Hello. So for quite a long time, I've looked at time in a nonlinear fashion. Partly through mediumship, partly through uh, head writing. So different, experiencing or traveling to, different spiritual places, where time doesn't match up with the way it is here. And especially with mediumship, because you can see and hear and experience things that aren't happening in a linear fashion. So the way I view it is, most people, when they're thinking of time linearly, they see like a silver line in space. If they could see that from an overhead perspective, they would see it as a river. That river, since it's in space, is not limited to flowing one direction or the other, going up or down, going back and forth. It can go up or down or around. It can go in any direction it wants, as it's needed. And by playing around just a tiny, tiny bit, I figured out I have to be very, very mindful about my actions, because there's a lot. It's like blindly trying to reprogram something without having all the data. If you just start typing in code, you really don't know what's going to happen. You crash the whole system. You could get what you want. You could get something totally different. Because, staying with that analogy, it's a river. You drop a pebble in it, you're going to get a ripple. If it's going fast or slow, you're going to get a different ripple. And it's going to affect the ecosystem of that water. So it's going to affect the water itself, the plants, the animals, everything in it. And if you're not mindful of that, if you're just looking from your own perspective and being, this is what I want, then there can be unintended consequences. Some people, they just go in and have more of a colonizer perspective, and they're like, I am taking what I want. I am going to do what I want because this is about me. I prefer to come with a perspective of, this isn't mine. This is collectively held by all the entities that experience this time and space. So I need to be respectful of all of this experience, and be mindful and respectful of that, because what I do could negatively affect or positively affect, depending on how it works out, many people, and I wouldn't know who it affected. So I'm very, very careful if I'm in a situation like that. In hedge riding, I'm very careful with that. In mediumship, is a little bit different. That's more of a conversation. That's more of an individual thing. And that's just based on how I approach it. And since I know from my perspective, time is non-linear, I'm aware that one can shift time from place to place. It's another one of those things. How is that ripple going to affect other people? And so I'm like, okay, no, I will respect this linear experience that other people are having, and just be at peace with, this experience I'm sharing, and just, be in a place of acceptance rather than force my will and perspective on my environment. Because if you get in certain Pentecostal circles, they also teach about time manipulation. You got to get way, way out there, but they do it too. And this is something they don't include, is this perspective of the collective experience. When they get to that point, it's about me, what I can have, what I can take. And that always gave me the heebie-jeebies. That never sat well with me. Is never about that for me. So, yeah, that's my take.
Morgana, could I ask you a question? If you're open to it.
Yeah, totally.
So I was wondering your thoughts, like with the example you gave of the river and like the ripple.
Mhm.
I was wondering your thoughts. So like, where do we fall in as like, I totally understand that point of view of like coming in and bulldozing and not like integrating with the space that you're in. But your thoughts about
Yeah.
like, where do, so like me, like, so if I was there in the river, and I'm causing kind of this ripple, where do I fall in terms of being a part of the system and being allowed to like take up that space? Does that make sense? So like, I'm not a disruption to the system, I'm part of it. And like, am I not allowed to take up space? And again, I totally understand like the colonizing part of it, but not coming from that perspective, the perspective of wanting to integrate with the space that I'm in and sharing.
Well, being that we are of all the elements, all 5 of them, the way I envision myself is I'm like, okay, if I'm having trouble with it, I will envision myself as like an animal in the water. Or if I'm really clear-minded, I will envision myself as the water. So I see myself in my place as part of it, as part of this collective experience and being. and then I'm moving with it, part of it, rather than an outsider, interacting with it. That, and I think is really fun to like envision myself as a fish. That way, it helps me keep that perspective that I'm part of and not separate from. Or, sometimes I'll just put myself in the water very, very gently, because you're in this liminal space, so you don't have to breathe. So you can just go in the water very, very gently and just flow with that time and feel that time and space and feel where you should be and what you need to do. Or, feel what you want to do, like how that fits in what does exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. We have Sam. Samsung's been waiting very patiently. Thank you, Samsung, for waiting.
I wanted to see if we could change the subject, but if we're still on the same subject, that's fine. I just had a question if we could change it, if anybody was ready for that or not. I had something I wanted to talk about, but I think God, I don't have my glasses on.
Sure.
You're so far away.
Yeah. Matthew, do you want to have a final weigh-in, wrap us up with this topic, and then we can shift?
Yeah.
That's okay with the group?
Yeah, if you
Okay.
don't mind, I'll keep it short too. So Maria, I think I might have heard a different flavor of question. Like Morgana, absolutely, thank you. I think you absolutely answered some of Maria's question. I'm just going to come at it from a little bit different lens. Of the like, how do you make sure you don't set off ripples that collapse the bank that shouldn't be collapsed? One, I personally believe if the bank gets collapsed from the ripples, the foundation was already there. Like that was your ripple to do. I think approaching it from here's what the universe I think is telling me. Here's how I'm not trying to change time. I'm trying to healthily engage with it and make sure that I'm watching for the manifestations, for the clues, for the, hey, oh, I've been talking and thinking and getting hints that I need a new job and a new career. And then all of a sudden this recruiter shows up, like, go have coffee with them, right? And so I will say that as a part of my practice, when I'm talking about the time work, it's completely different than manifestation work. Sometimes it's a tool in addition to manifestation work, but it might be time source, it might be tantra source, it might be nature source. Like there's different energy sources for different flavors and processes, and I go a mix of like what's best for it plus what matches and get to the answer that way. Yeah, so just don't worry about the ripples. Approach it with a sense of like, I'm trying to listen and have a tail, like you have a decision in the process too. Mind, body, spirit. Don't all three. So listen to all three, and we all cause ripples. It's okay. And as long as you're out to like go, hey, I'm trying to have a good intent. I'm trying to make whether it's my life or someone else's life better, whatever it is, or Earth or whatever. Stay there and make your ripples. It's okay.
Thank you for that perspective, everyone, for your own perspectives. And Samsung, ready for you. Take us to a
Thank
new
you.
place.
Yeah, so it is okay. Like this topic actually brought this up in me, but like lately I have been like this extremely like angry person. Like anything and everything is just like pissing me off, and I'm taking out on all the wrong people. And like, and it's been about changes. And I have been so resistant to change because I'm scared of change. Scared changes scare the fuck out of me. And it's just been really weird lately. It's like not I haven't been myself. It's just been, and I've been resistant to a lot of different things. Like I haven't been grounding. I haven't been doing all the normal things because I've been, I think, resistant to what I know can help me, which is, I don't know. But, and then like also losing my family members, just like, and then with some of the changes in the community, I was like, I brought it all into myself, like, oh, it's, you know, made it all about me when it's actually not all about me. But yesterday, my mother was driving down to come see me and found this kitten. And and I know this is gonna sound really fucking weird, but the moment she gave him, like she brought him to me, like because I was really hesitant about bringing in another cat because of Kirby, and he's gonna be 15 next month. He's an old dude. I mean, this poor guy obviously has been living out on the streets. But the moment I held him and like really just sat down and sat with him, I realized his life was hard. He had been out of control. He had no control of anything. I have, not necessarily I have control, but I have resources. I have things. I have tools. I have things. And it like seriously, it made me just sit down and just start to cry because I'm realizing I am becoming a control freak to a certain point, and that's kind of, I don't know how to stop it, but I'm realizing that I really do have a gift for animals because they are calming me down. But this little guy, um he started panicking because we had to bathe him. He was so filthy, so filthy. And I started thinking about what you talked to me about, Jen Marie, like leaning into my giftings, and like I'm so confused on how to work with it. So I was emotional. He was freaking out. So I was like, well, what would I want someone to do to me if I'm sitting here? I'm freaking out. So I just wrapped him up in my shirt and held him close and just started like rubbing his head and just thinking like, you're safe. I'm safe. We're safe. We're going to figure this shit out together. And he fell asleep. I fell asleep. And I was just like, but it just made me really think like, I'm so resistant to some things, but I have so many resources. I have so many tools, but it's one, it's embarrassing. Two, it's just like I have these things that I have available to me, but just the power of what an animal can do for you is amazing. Like I have Kirby. I've had Kirby since he was 3 weeks. And since losing Timmy, you know, it's been a little, I haven't really had like that connection, like directly, I feel like directly connected to me and my magic or whatever. But this little guy, like, and he like, I don't know, just makes, I don't know. So I'm just kind of bringing that up. I don't know if anybody has felt that or whatever, or has been feeling like with the changes lately of like how I've been so resistant to him. I have become an asshole to everybody I truly fucking love. And it's not just like within this community, it's like with like in my own family. I'm so resistant to it, even though I can see that it's going to be good things. I've become such an asshole and I don't, but yeah. So yeah.
Thank you. Jen Marie, you're looking to weigh in for Samsung? Okay, go for it. And then Anne, you will be after Jen Marie.
I was about to type and I was like, it's gonna take me so long to type because I can't type for shit. First of all, I love that you had like that experience. And I love that your system communicates to you in that way, right? Just bring a cat along to help you, like, in real time look at this, right? And when our systems are in resistance to something, there's a block in the flow. What's going on here, right? And a lot of times, that resistance to change it's a trauma response, right? It's little Samsung doing the best that they can to maintain in a situation that they feel out of control, right? And so what I tend to do when, like, I become aware of those, like, really strong resistances, that's when I'm like, okay, like, little Jen needs some attention in some way. And so I turn directly there. So instead of this denial or there's something wrong with me because I don't like change, I instead go to, it's totally understandable why I'm uncomfortable with this change. It is completely understandable why my system's freaking out. I care about this thing a lot. And it's okay to care about things a lot. And just and going through that, allowing little Samsung or little Jen to communicate, what is it that you're afraid of? What is it that you're concerned about? And allowing them a voice at the table. Like when you have, and that is what you did to the kitten. Your tiny self needs you to do that with them also, right? And it's funny, the time travel thing that we were talking about too, because you can go back to a time or the time in your life that uh that little Samsung created that belief that if everything stays the same, then we are safe, right? Right. And which is a child thing to think, right? Because as an adult, thinking that, it's like that doesn't make any sense at all, but there's a belief in you that that is real. And so when you interact with your child self in that way of like, hey, I get it. I get it. You're scared and you believe that if everything stays the same, that you are safe. And the one thing that will always be the same is I will always be here for you. You are never alone. And we've got this, right? And so reminding your system of the things that are real. What can they depend on, right? And just like you showed the kitten, is it Dean now?
It's Dean.
Okay. Just like you showed Dean that you are going to be there for them, that they are safe, and that change is okay, right? Just because they can't see the whole picture yet, they don't know they're in a safe space yet. They don't know they're going to be very fucking well taken care of, right? So they're scared. And that's okay. They just don't have enough information yet. And if you can show yourself that same level of kindness, that's going to be a very expansive experience for you. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to put that nugget, and also knowing that just like the kitten probably was freaking the fuck out at the thought of taking a bath, tiny Samsung freaking the fuck out that there's changes. Are you upset with the kitten for freaking the fuck out?
No.
No. And those that care about you, that see you for who you are, recognize what's going on, right? And like, I'm not upset that you're freaking out any more than I would be upset that a kitten's freaking out for going into water. Like, I get it. I get it. I totally. And there isn't this like, this, no one's holding anything against you, right? For having this very human, very real, very understandable experience with change. Change is something that a lot of people have a really difficult time with. It can be scary, but it isn't the unknown that we're afraid of. It's what we think we know about the unknown, right? That is actually scary. We're projecting that shit. And so, yeah, just, you got this. that's what I wanted to interject, to drop in there. That little nugget I wanted to like dangle in there. Go ahead, Matt. Oh wait, actually it was Anne.
Yes, Anne is next.
It's me. Every time I SASS, I always say, I'm just gonna be quiet. I'm not gonna say anything. Okay, maybe I'll say something, but I won't show my face. But then, like every time, I'm like, I need to. So.
And
you can
I
hear
just
me
want
now,
to
right?
pause. So you are just a little bit glitchy.
Okay. I will move. Oh wait.
Let's give Anne a moment.
If I turn off my camera, does that work better?
That's better, yeah.
I'm still gonna go inside.
Okay.
Do, 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 do. Okay, going to come
Thank you for the
inside.
hold music. Appreciate that.
I was just saying, whenever I come to SASS, I say I'm just gonna stay quiet, or maybe I just won't show my face, but then I feel a need to connect, and here I am. So, I will say Jen covered a lot of what I wanted to say, but she did it very well. Samsung, my friend, you are free to express yourself however you like. However, I would like to say that Samsung is my friend, and I don't like it when you call her names like asshole. You can, as Jen brought up little Samsung, think about that too, of like, if you call yourself something like that, it's almost like calling the little inner child of you, that version too. And again, you're free to call yourself whatever you want, but I love what Jen said about treating yourself with care, taking as good care of yourself as you take care of that kitten. But also, listen, what beautiful moment it was when you saw what was coming into your hands, that it wasn't just a kitten, but it was an opportunity for you. It was an opportunity to learn and to see your perspective and to take care of something else, and growing into your giftings and grow through that. Heck, we all get, or at least I can speak for myself, that I get mired down into this sort of limbo state of like, I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I'm doing this, maybe I'm not. Is this real? Is it not? I don't know. Yeah, I could meditate and that would probably help, but I don't want to. But then the moment comes up and something crystallizes right in front of you like that. So I wanted to, point out, like, hey, you were fearing and resisting a change, and it can often be a trauma response. And what I was thinking to myself is, so when change has always been negative, you need to change the association and add something positive. And you're like, and my mom found this kitten. I'm like, well, there you go. There you go. Now you've got a positive thing to associate with this change. Things are changing in more than one way, and this is a positive change to help you through what might be kind of scary. But I don't want to say, I don't want to project onto you that you manifested your help, but you got exactly what you needed to get through this. And how magical and how wonderful is that, And you're badass. You're going to be fine. You're going to do just fine. And you just got to keep reminding little Samsung that, yeah, you have the support. And also reminding little Samsung that you're a grown ass woman and you can handle it yourself now, too. Okay. Just wanted to send you love and encouragement and show, like, hey, look what you did. Look at you. You're doing the thing. You're awesome. And I like ta-da as an ending way to end our thing. So ta-da, that's me.
Thank you, Anne. Matthew, you are next.
So, I won't actually say anything myself on the topic. Jen, one of the songs from the little thing I cooked up for last week is a really great one of those simple songs about self-love that's definitely creeps into self-prayer love territory. So I'll share the link with everybody. And instead of me talking for 3.5 minutes, if you'd like to listen to it, I'm not going to pretend that I can separate myself from what I cooked up for last week. I'll let you guys have a few minutes to listen to it, right? And take it in at your own pace without me blasting you guys. Like, I knew what I was doing when I made it part of that. I'm okay stepping away for a few minutes to respect the space. That's your call. Not me staying. Like, I have to step away if you choose to listen. But if you want me to just drop the link and everyone can listen later, we'll just do that, and it's on to the next person.
So if you want to share, is there a space where people can like independently find the link if they choose
Oh,
to?
it's just a YouTube link to the song I was going to put in chat, and then everyone has their own.
Do you have a YouTube page, like a public page, or is it
No,
private?
no. This is it's a link to the song on YouTube. It's just a link to the song on YouTube.
Okay.
Not anything to do with me.
So I would say that if I'm Jen Marie Command, I'm okay with you sharing it. But
Okay.
just that it's not affiliated with Bright and Dark. It's just Matthew sharing his own thing. under that caveat, that's cool.
In that particular world, like this isn't like a personal friend or like whatever. Like, this is just a group that has one particular song that like really just hits the nail on the head.
Yeah, I'm
So,
okay with sharing a song. Gemma, is that cool with you? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Matthew, did you have something else, or is it okay if I weigh in?
They say it so much better than I do. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So I just wanted to kind of weigh in with Samsung. So as a lot of you know, within the community, I'm often like the messenger of information. And so just to kind of know that I understand that there might be a lot of feelings when there are changes, and that I don't take anything personally, that it's like me personally when there's feedback about on any particular thing. So just to know that, Samsung, because I didn't get a chance to respond to you in the chat, but since we're here, that I appreciate your message, and that not taking anything personally, and I recognize that my role sometimes as like the messenger of information, that people are going to have responses, and it's okay to feel the way that you're feeling. And part of kind of why we're all together, like doing what we're doing, the part that I'm interested in is the magic, but also the shadow work, and we're kind of learning how to process all of these things. And so that's kind of part of what we're doing. So Samsung, like, you often don't I don't know if you give yourself enough credit for, like, you often pivot pretty quickly, actually, like, with things. And I don't know if you give yourself enough credit, like, you often don't stay in maybe what you may feel is like a stuck place very long, like from my experience. And so, yeah, give yourself credit for like navigating through these things actually pretty quickly, and processing things actually pretty quickly from my view. Go for it, Samsung.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, you're part of the reason why I like this community, because the way you handle people like me sometimes, you handle it with so much grace. Um, it's definitely like something I'm trying to pick up on, like, just, yeah. Or have what you guys say is like, sometimes I don't have all the information, so I need to stop. Where I'm like, blah blah blah. I hate this and I hate that, and then I'm like, wait a second, do I though? But no, yeah, I appreciate that, because I always do feel like I get stuck, and I'm like, in there for like days and days. But yeah, I appreciate that because I do feel like I'm stuck in there sometimes for a long time. But I appreciate you because you're so graceful at what you do and how you handle. I'll just say handle me, handle me. Because I don't think I'm that easy sometimes. But I really appreciate you. Yes. Shit.
Thank you. We have 20 minutes. We can keep going on some of these topics, or if, of course, if anyone has a change of topic, you are welcome to change the topic.
Other than like me I'm working on signing a consent form for my child to fling himself down a mountain on a bike. Like, apparently, like, it's called downhill mountain biking, blah, blah, blah. It's a sport and he's really fucking good at it, but he's still my baby. But that's what was just going on. So I got a little distracted. He's like, "Hey, Mom, I'm gonna go do this thing today on this place." Yeah, it's so hard to be supportive of my glory. Not surprising that my child enjoys flinging himself skillfully down a mountainside. Did you guys hear him?
What we heard
provide-
him, but what did he say?
He said, "You don't provide enough context." So he's excellent at this. Like, he's really good. Not
me to drive is telling me how to practice a car crash or something. There's no, come on.
well, in that instance, you are flinging yourself down the road at high speeds. I would still say it that way. I do when I'm being dramatic. Come on. You're ruining my moment, man. So my son has been training for this for years and years and years and years. And he's a mechanic, bike mechanic. Like, he really knows what he's doing, but it does not change the fact that my baby is still flinging himself down the side of a mountain as fast as he can. So, feelings. Go ahead, Jenna.
Okay, it's probably a little bit random, but I did a sound healing certification last weekend. And one of the things with the singing bowls was to start clockwise and end clockwise, because that basically it was the reverse of what I've learned from my witchy training. So to add energy, you go counterclockwise, and to like release it, you go clockwise. And that seems weird to me. And I'm wondering if anyone has some like input on it, because the whole like clockwise to add and counterclockwise to remove makes a lot more sense to me. It just from I don't know, but it was just one of the, I know it's super random, but it was just one of those that I was like, I have to ask the witchy community because it's going to bug me like until I figure it out.
Matthew, we're up first.
Okay, this is just my lens, and I've studied a lot of different practices and run into similar, like, hey, the recipe part, like when you're trying to set this intent, it may be very mundane, opposite practice. And every time, my sniff test, my rule of thumb is, if I see something conflicting like that, trust my gut. Like, get my brain out of it, see what the other people like, do both. Trust your gut and see what the response is from the people you're working with. Cross check it. But yeah, like if your gut's really going like, oh, this feels better for me at least, it's been like, that's been the biggest sign of when I have directly conflicting process pieces. Ta-da.
That's so going to be our new thing. Hashtag not a cult. Okay.
I'm in
This
next
is
week is
this is one of those things. Okay, the caveat being, if you are learning a specific tradition, you follow that specific tradition. Period. There's a reason why they do things the way that they are doing them. There's layers to it. But if you are not following that tradition, and it feels more aligned for your practice to do it a certain way, just like what Matthew said, do it that way. This is one of those instances where personal correspondences trump traditional correspondences in an untrained witch. The point is that your system is aligned in a specific way when you're doing workings. And if it feels more aligned for you to do it, clockwise for one way and counterclockwise for another way, then do that, because the whole purpose of the working is to align your system, right? And if your system doesn't align the other way, and you have no intention of training your system to accept this other way of being, then there's no reason to do it. Does that make sense? Because what we're talking about is neuroscience. What we're talking about is developing or cultivating a relationship with a ritual, with a method, so that, again, your system comes into alignment, so that you can do this working, whatever that working is. I hope that was helpful. And passing the torch to Maria. Ta-da!
I was just curious, Chana, did they give you an explanation as to the why they do it that way?
No, just her explanation is we end clockwise because singing bowls collect a lot of energy, obviously, and so it was to release that energy back out of the bowl. But again, like my witchy training tells me that's backwards, but I don't want some like Tibetan monk spirit to come like get pissed off at me because I'm disrespecting my bowl. Which, you want to see it? I actually have two, but I bought this one.
We like show and tell around here. Thank you.
I know, isn't this great? I bought it yesterday. It is 930 years old, and it was actually made in Tibet. The lady I did the sound training with, she actually goes and collects, like, goes and finds ancient, like really old, authentic Tibetan bowls. Anyway, so this is my new friend. We're a little bonded.
Nice. My last piece would be, if you feel called to, I would have a conversation with her about it. That's, I think, how I would handle it before you make your final decision. Like, if she's open to just saying, and for you to saying, like, I'm a practicing witch, this is how I practice, but wanting to dive more into the meaning behind you start and end like this way, because it might give you just more on it. And there are other hands up. And Matthew, you are next, and then Jen Marie.
So one of the sniff test questions I use in these situations I forgot before, and Jen, thank you for reminding me, is absolutely the tradition, like if it's traditional practice. I think if you can clearly answer, I want to approach this learning that I have done and really engage with the specific practice as a traditional practice, then absolutely engage with what they're telling you to in the methodology that they're prescribing. If you're saying, I went to go learn the sound bowl stuff to add tools to my non-traditional bag, then you lean on your gut versus leaning on the tradition. And I don't even think there's anything wrong with saying my gut from my witchy practice says do it this way. But as an energy strengthening exercise, as part of this practice, I'm going to at least follow the tradition enough to learn how to open the channels through the way they teach. It gives you some options on some way to handle it. Ta-da!
Okay, so you could ask the bowl how it wants to be used, right? You could try it both ways and see how it feels. Actually allow your system to open and ask sincerely what the bowl wants from you, how it wants to be interacted with. And also, there is this, all right, okay. How do I say this? You know, that fine line of like cultural, it's not a fine line of cultural appropriation, right? It's not a fine line, but it's something that we're like super conscious of. I don't want to learn from this and then like take it on and do it wrong, right? I don't want to disrespect, right? Right. So if you're going and oh, a really good example of that would be like this teacup that I use, right? It's a Gaiwan teacup, right? I don't use it in a traditional sense. I don't use it, nor do I refer to this teacup. You know, it's a specific ceremony that I'm doing. I'm using this cup as in the way that it's supposed to be used, right? I'm not saying that. I'm not putting any like pretenses that I'm using this in a traditional sense in any way, right? The problems come when people uh, are like, oh, I got this really cool teacup. It's called this. And I am now doing a Gaiwan tea ceremony because I'm using the teacup, right? That's where things get fucking dumb and gray, right? Same thing with like, with using a singing bowl, right? Just using the singing bowl, it's about your intention, right? If you're like whacking on that thing with the intention of just making noise, right, is a very different thing than whacking on the thing because you are in ceremony and it feels like that's, you know, the sound that needs to come out of it, right? It's a different intention. One is destructive, one is I'm trying to engage with this, but I don't really know how, so I'm going to be doing it like this way, right? There is this level of sincerity of intention and respect that you're doing. You can be doing it wrong, like wrong, or not traditionally, and you're not promoting it as if this is the way that singing bowls are used, right? You're not teaching it that way, and you are not misrepresenting it, right? That's where things get gray, is that sincerity, the representation. You can use a tool or an item in your practice in your own way, as long as you're not presenting it like that is the way that it's supposed to be used to others, right? Does that make sense?
Shanna, did you want to weigh back into Jen Marie before Matthew? Just in case you had like a follow-up to Jen Marie's question or Jen Marie's weigh in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say no, that totally, like, that all makes sense. It was more from, I, like Jen Marie, like the science behind all of it. So it's not like, oh, I'm gonna like desecrate this practice by, just throwing out everything I learned. I'm curious because we're talking about frequency and energy and things flow, and I know that the reason we do things a certain way very often is based in a scientific reason that we may not even understand, but it's based in the scientific principle, because magic is science we don't understand, right? So that was kind of my curiosity, is like, why would it work differently in one space than it would another? But I'm also the one who thinks, like, do witches in Australia do it the opposite way because toilets flush the opposite direction? Does that make sense? Like, more like energy. Maybe it doesn't. I have had way too much caffeine this morning, so that's probably part of it. But just more from like the scientific of why we move energy in the directions that we do. And of course, everything I know, like at the baseline, it's intention and stuff like that. But that was really more, sorry, I should have clarified. It's really more of like a scientific, I just need to know why. So anyway, that was it.
Thank you. Matthew?
Okay, I'll tease your scientific brain in a different way. I personally am a believer of, again, what does the mundane tell me? What's the mundane physical realm feedback? What tool am I using? You're using a sound bowl that you are playing and interacting with. And it may, to piggyback on what Jen said, asking the bowl may not just be relying only on intent. It's warming up with the bowl. It's like, okay, I'm warming up. I'm going to open with accepting or cleansing or whatever it is. Let the bowl tell you. Like, if you're focused on positive and clockwise, it's just like your fingers jumping and counterclockwise. Like, that's, to me at least, that's the bowl telling you, like, that's the way the bowl wants to be played. And that process may not work at all for you. I don't know. But it's at least one way where, like, hey, my science brain goes, all right, it's a sound bowl. Let the sound and the playing get my intent. Is it working great? Are the vibes flowing? Let me try the other way. Like, and just let that be it. And let my ear tell me.
And also, it's like the deeper, sometimes the more down the rabbit hole you go, you're going to find that there's conflicting information too. You know, like this person says counterclockwise, this person says clockwise, and they both have like support, you know? So it's like the deeper down the rabbit hole, sometimes that happens. And then I think it comes back to like, so what feels, you know, in alignment for you, like where you get the ping, like, you know, when you're taking in the information, like where does it ping for you? Where do you like feel that excitement? Or maybe like you feel like it's remembering, and then maybe, you know, kind of pay attention to those types of things where it's just aligning with your system. Let us know what you find out. Well, we have 3 minutes left. We can wrap it up unless anyone has a last minute comment, question. Happy Sunday, everyone.
Happy Sunday, everyone. I think this is the smallest SASS we've had in a while as far as attendance. And I think it goes to show for what time of year it is with how busy everybody is. And everybody going into this like pre-harvest, post first harvest kind of like stuff. Shit's coming in. We got stuff to do, right? And I think a gentle reminder as we are in the midst of preparing for second harvest and just like getting things organized and set up, to take a moment to very intentionally be as present as you can, even if it's just for a moment, taking a deep breath and relaxing into right now. Because there's peace there that is needed so much during this time of season. We can get so caught up in the go, 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 go of things that we forget that life is about this experience and this like moment. We're here for a reason. We're doing these things and we are in this space because it's a part of that path. But staying present, that's where your power is right here. Right? I wish you all the best week, and may your practice be expansive and filled with many blessings, bright and dark. I love you guys. Bye.